The wind howled across the valley, carrying the sound of thunder rolling from one end of the sky to the other. In a small wooden shack, half buried under broken metal sheets, lived a young human orphan named Eli. He had no family, no friends, and no home beyond the scraps he had built for himself near the dark edge of the forest. Every night, he would fix old radios and scrap drones he found in the junkyard nearby, hoping to sell them for food. Life had taught him silence, hunger, and how to survive when the world had forgotten his name. That night, as rain poured heavily, Eli looked out the cracked window and saw something strange. A blue streak cut across the black sky like lightning, but it didn't vanish. It fell, burning brighter, crashing into the woods beyond the hill. The ground shook under his feet, followed by a loud metallic thud that echoed through the storm. Eli froze, staring, his heart racing. He whispered to himself, "That wasn't lightning." Curiosity and fear wrestled inside him. The storm was fierce, the forest was dark, but something deep inside pushed him forward. He grabbed his flashlight, wrapped himself in a torn jacket, and stepped into the rain. Mud splashed beneath his boots as he climbed the hill. The forest was alive with the sound of cracking branches and falling rain. Then, through the trees, he saw it. A large, glowing wreck half buried in the earth, steaming and crackling with sparks. Eli hid behind a fallen log, watching carefully. The object was like nothing he had ever seen. Smooth silver metal, curved like a shell, covered in strange markings that pulsed with blue light. He heard something inside, a weak, painful sound, like a groan mixed with static. He hesitated, fear gripping his chest. But then the sound came again, softer this time. Someone, or something, was alive inside. Without thinking, Eli ran toward the wreck. The air was hot and smelled like burnt metal. He climbed through a broken panel and froze. Inside the pod, lying against the control panel, was a creature, tall, frail, with pale gray skin and silver eyes glowing faintly even in the dark. It was bleeding, its breathing uneven. Eli had never seen an alien before, but something about the old being's face, the pain in its expression, stopped him from running. He whispered, "Hey, can you hear me?" The alien's head turned slowly, eyes meeting his. Its voice was weak, trembling. "Human, help, please." The words were broken but clear enough. Eli swallowed his fear, pulling the alien gently out of the wreck. It was lighter than he expected, its skin cold like stone. He covered it with his jacket, trying to shield it from the rain. The creature's fingers clutched his wrist, as if holding on to life itself. Step by step, Eli dragged the alien back toward his cabin. Lightning flashed through the trees, revealing shapes that made him uneasy, shadows moving where there should have been none. Something was out there, maybe searching for the crash. He walked faster, heart thumping louder with every sound. When he finally reached his shack, he laid the alien on his small bed and covered it with a blanket. The creature whispered again, "They will come hide." Then its eyes closed, sinking into unconsciousness. Eli looked out the window, rain still pounding hard. He saw lights flicker between the trees, not fire, not lightning, but hovering blue lights scanning the ground. Machines, he realized. His hands shook as he pulled the curtain shut and blew out the lantern. In the dim light, he could still see the alien's chest rise and fall weakly. Who was it? Why did it crash here? And what did it mean by "they will come"? He went to the door and slid the wooden lock in place. The sound of humming filled the air outside, low, mechanical, like drones searching. For a moment, Eli thought about leaving, running far into the valley. But then he looked back at the alien, lying helpless and half-broken. He sighed and whispered, "If I run now, I'll never forgive myself." He picked up one of his old tools, a metal pipe, and stood near the window. Through the fogged glass, he saw shadows moving. A light beam passed over the cabin walls, scanning for life. Eli held his breath, his heart pounding so loud it felt like thunder inside him. The beam moved away, disappearing into the forest. He waited, every second feeling longer than the last. After a while, silence returned. The rain softened, and only the sound of dripping water filled the air. Eli looked at the sleeping alien, its breathing slow but steady. He noticed strange patterns glowing faintly on its arms, like moving light under the skin. It didn't look dangerous anymore, just tired, maybe afraid. Eli sat down on the floor beside the bed, staring at it with mixed wonder and worry. "Who are you?" he whispered softly. But there was no answer, only the quiet hum of the forest beyond the walls. Outside, far in the darkness, a faint metallic sound echoed again, a sound not from this world. Eli didn't know it yet, but his simple act of kindness had already changed everything. By saving one life that night, he had just stepped into a story that would shake worlds. Morning came slow, painting the forest in pale silver light. Eli opened his eyes to the sound of soft breathing beside him. The old alien was still there, lying on his bed, wrapped in a blanket that looked too small for its long frame. For a moment, Eli thought it had all been a dream. The crash, the lights, the strange words. But then the alien's eyes opened, glowing faint blue in the dim light. It turned its head slowly toward him, its voice dry but calm. "You helped me." Eli stepped closer, nervous but trying to hide it. He poured water into a tin cup and lifted it near the alien's lips. The creature drank carefully, each movement filled with exhaustion. After a moment, it looked around the small cabin, the cracked walls, the scattered metal parts, the faint smell of oil and dust. Its gaze stopped at a broken drone on the shelf. "Human craft," it murmured, as if studying a child's toy. Eli smiled weakly. "Yeah, I fix old junk." He hesitated, then asked, "Who are you?" The alien blinked slowly, trying to form words in human tongue. "My name, Saren," it said, voice trembling like wind through glass. "I am, from the stars, a researcher, a traveler, but my ship fell." Eli leaned forward, eyes wide. "So that was your ship that crashed last night?" Saren nodded. "Yes, damage chased." The word chased made Eli's stomach tighten. "Who's chasing you?" he asked. Saren closed its eyes, whispering, "Hunters, my people. I refuse their war." Eli didn't understand completely, but the fear in her voice was enough. She wasn't just lost, she was being hunted. He looked toward the window, remembering the glowing lights that searched the forest the night before. They weren't gone, they were still out there, waiting. Saren tried to sit up, but pain crossed her face. Eli hurried to help, placing a pillow behind her back. "You must rest," he said softly. "It's not safe outside yet." Her thin hands trembled as she reached for a small metal piece tied around her wrist. When she pressed it, a beam of light projected into the air, a moving image of stars, planets, and strange symbols dancing above them. Eli stared in wonder, his reflection shining inside the star map. "This," Saren said slowly, "is home." The holographic stars shifted, forming shapes Eli couldn't name. One point of light glowed brighter than the rest. Saren touched it gently. "My world," she said. "They call it Raylon." Eli watched in silence, amazed and overwhelmed. He had grown up in a broken human colony where food was scarce and hope even rarer. Now an alien from another world was sitting in his cabin, showing him the universe. But the wonder didn't last. The moment Saren touched another point on the map, the device sparked, flickering red. A sharp sound echoed, a mechanical pulse, and her eyes widened in fear. "They found us," she whispered. Eli's heart stopped for a second. "Who found us?" Saren grabbed his wrist, her grip surprisingly strong. "Drones, tracking signal." He rushed to the window. The forest outside was quiet, too quiet. Then he saw it, faint blue dots of light moving between the trees. 3, 4, maybe more. They were coming closer, scanning, searching. Saren tried to stand, but her legs gave way. Eli caught her, feeling the tremble in her body. "We can't stay here," he said quickly. "They'll find the cabin." She nodded weakly. "I can walk little." Eli packed a few things in a bag, food, a flashlight, and one of his metal tools for defense. He looked around his small home one last time, realizing he might never see it again. Then he helped Saren out the back door, moving into the shadows of the trees. The morning fog was thick, covering their steps. Each movement felt like walking on the edge of danger. Saren whispered words Eli couldn't understand, and for a moment, a faint shimmer covered them, like invisible mist wrapping their bodies. "Cloak," she said simply. "Hide from eyes." They moved deeper into the forest. The air smelled of wet earth and smoke from the crashed ship. Behind them, faint metallic footsteps echoed. The hunters had reached the cabin. Eli could see flashes of blue light through the fog, scanning his home, tearing through walls. He clenched his fists, anger rising. That small place was all he had in this world. Now it was gone. Saren stopped suddenly, breathing hard. She pointed to a hollow log near the riverbank. "Hide," she whispered. Eli helped her crawl inside, both pressing close as the sound of drones grew louder. Through the cracks of the wood, he saw shadows move past, tall figures with glowing helmets and weapons humming like thunder. One paused, scanning the area. Eli held his breath. The figure turned its head, then continued forward. They waited until the sound faded completely. When they finally stepped out, the forest felt different. Saren's strength was fading fast, her skin turning pale silver. Eli guided her to a flat rock near the river and gave her water again. She looked at him with tired eyes. "You risk much," she said softly. Eli smiled faintly. "Guess I don't like bullies, no matter what planet they're from." Saren's lips curved into what almost looked like a smile. From her cloak, she pulled out a small metallic cube, smooth and shining with soft blue light. She placed it gently into Eli's hands. "What's this?" he asked. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "My work, my knowledge, your protection." Before Eli could ask more, a sudden deep hum rolled through the air. The hunters were activating something bigger. Saren's eyes widened. "We must run again." Eli nodded, holding the cube tight against his chest. He didn't understand it yet, but something inside him felt it. This moment would change everything. The orphan and the alien were now bound by fate, running from enemies neither fully knew. And far above the clouds, hidden eyes were already watching them both. The forest had never been this quiet, not even during storms. Eli could hear his own breathing, the steady crunch of leaves beneath his boots, and the faint humming of Saren's device echoing like a heartbeat. The morning fog hung low, swallowing sound, making the world feel smaller and stranger. Behind them, deep in the woods, came the sharp crack of branches. The hunters were close. Saren leaned on Eli's shoulder, her steps uneven, her pale skin glimmering faintly under the light of the cube he carried. They moved quickly, following the old river path that twisted between trees and broken stone. Eli had walked this route 100 times, but never like this. Never while being hunted by machines from another world. He whispered, "They're tracking us, aren't they?" Saren nodded weakly. "By heat, by sound, by fear." Her voice cracked on the last word, and Eli realized she wasn't just scared for herself, she was scared for him. They passed a fallen tree covered in moss, and Eli stopped, looking around. He remembered an old tunnel, a collapsed mining route from before the war, half hidden near the cliffs. "If we can reach the tunnel," he said, "they won't find us easily." Saren nodded, but her steps grew slower. Her body was weakening fast, each breath shallow, each movement heavy. Still, she tried to smile. "You run well, for a child of dirt." Eli almost laughed, even in fear. "And you talk well for someone half dead." Then the forest roared with sound. The sharp whine of thrusters, engines cutting through fog. 3 drones broke through the mist, their lights bright as moons, scanning everything. Eli grabbed Saren's hand and dove behind a cluster of rocks, pulling her down. The ground shook as energy beams hit the soil, burning lines of fire through the trees. The air smelled like metal and ozone. Saren lifted a trembling hand and pressed 2 fingers to the cube still glowing in Eli's pack. A pulse of light burst out, silent, invisible, but the drones suddenly flickered, confused, turning their sensors in random directions. "What did you do?" Eli whispered, eyes wide. Saren's voice was faint. "A trick. They won't see us for a moment." He nodded, helping her stand again. They ran, breathless, moving through thorn and mud, branches scratching at their faces. Every step felt like running through a dream where the world kept pulling you back. At last, they reached the mouth of the old tunnel. It was dark, half collapsed, filled with water that shimmered under the cube's glow. Eli helped Saren sit on a dry rock near the entrance. He could see fear in her eyes, but also something else, regret. "Why are they chasing you?" he finally asked. Saren hesitated, her gaze distant. "Because I told the truth." Eli frowned. "What truth?" She looked up, her glowing eyes soft. "Your people were meant to be erased." Eli froze. "What?" Saren nodded slowly. "The Empire, my empire, decided humans were too dangerous, too unpredictable, 2. Human. I refused, she said quietly. I saved records, proof, and ran. Eli's heart pounded. This wasn't just a rescue anymore. He had saved someone who defied an entire galactic empire. Before he could speak again, the air inside the tunnel changed, heavy, humming. Saren looked toward the entrance, whispering, "They come." Eli turned, seeing faint blue lights approaching through the trees again. They weren't just hunting now, they were closing in, step by step. He pulled Saren deeper into the tunnel, splashing through water. The walls glowed faintly with minerals that sparkled in the cube's light. He glanced at her. She looked smaller now, fragile, yet her eyes still carried strength. "Why help me?" she asked suddenly, voice trembling. Eli didn't stop moving. "Because no one ever helped me when I needed it." A loud metallic crash echoed behind them. One of the drones had found the entrance. The tunnel shook, dust raining down like ash. Saren touched the cube again, whispering strange words in her language. The light from the cube grew brighter, flooding the tunnel walls with soft blue glow. Symbols appeared on the surface of the cube, shifting and rotating like living letters. "What is it doing?" Eli asked. "Listening," she said. "It senses danger." The cube pulsed once, then a faint energy field spread out around them. The next moment, a beam hit the tunnel entrance, but instead of collapsing, the rock held strong, sealed by light. Eli stared in disbelief. Saren leaned back against the wall, closing her eyes. "The cube. Ancient tech. Older than my kind." She placed a hand on his arm. "It responds to heart, not strength." Eli didn't understand, but something about her tone made him silent. He looked at the cube, feeling its warmth against his skin. After a while, the sound of drones faded. Only the dripping of water and the faint hum of the cube filled the air. Eli sat beside Saren, both breathing heavily. She smiled faintly. "You are brave, Eli." He shook his head. "No, I'm just tired of losing." Saren's smile deepened for a moment before she coughed. Her energy was fading fast. He took off his jacket and placed it over her shoulders. She whispered, "When I am gone, take the cube, run east, find the mountain of glass." Eli frowned. "What's there?" She looked at him with dimming eyes. "Hope." Outside, thunder rolled again, but this time it wasn't from the sky. It came from engines far above. Through a crack in the tunnel roof, Eli saw lights moving. A ship, enormous, black, gliding silently through the clouds. He knew without being told that the real hunters had arrived. Saren looked up weakly. "The Empire's eye," she whispered. "They send soldiers next." Eli gripped the cube tighter, feeling its pulse match his heartbeat. He didn't know what to do, but he knew one thing. He wouldn't leave her behind. Not now, not ever. Somewhere deep in the tunnel, the cube glowed brighter, as if answering that thought. And far above, the alien ship began to descend, its engines shaking the forest, its searchlights slicing through the mist. The chase was no longer just survival. It was the beginning of something far greater than either of them understood. The forest was quiet again, but it wasn't peace. It was the kind of silence that came before something terrible. Eli stood at the tunnel's edge, watching faint blue lights blink through the fog where the soldiers had passed hours ago. The air smelled of burnt metal and wet moss, the sky above still gray from the storm. Saren was resting beside a fallen stone, her breathing soft but weak. She had given everything she had to keep them alive through the night. Eli could see it in her trembling hands and fading glow. He turned toward the valley beyond the trees. For the first time since the crash, sunlight broke through the clouds. It hit the mountains in the distance, and there, a column of light rose into the air, pure and blue like fire made of sky. Saren's eyes opened, the reflection of the light shining in them. She smiled faintly. "Rescue, my people found us." Eli felt a strange hope lift his chest, but something deep inside whispered caution. He remembered how she had spoken of her empire. Cruel, powerful, heartless. He asked softly, "Are you sure it's them?" Saren nodded weakly. "The signal code. It's ours from Raylon." Eli looked again, the light pulsing steadily in the clouds. It was beautiful and unnatural at the same time. But the forest around him felt wrong. Too still, no birds, no wind, not even the hum of insects. The only sound was the distant rhythm of machines. He didn't like it, not one bit. He turned back to Saren. We should move slowly, just in case. But she was already struggling to stand, clutching the cube close. Help me, she whispered. I must reach them before they leave. He put her arm around his shoulders and started walking down the slope. The light grew brighter with every step, shining through the fog like a promise. Eli wanted to believe it. He wanted to think someone was coming to help her, and maybe him too. After all, he had lost everything, and she was all he had left. But as they drew closer, he began to notice something. The beam wasn't rising from a ship. It came from a device, a tall silver spire stuck deep in the ground, humming with alien energy. And there was no one around it. No rescuers, no voices, no movement. Saren frowned, confusion spreading over her face. This is not right, she said softly. This isn't a beacon we use. Eli felt his heart drop. Then what is it? Before she could answer, the ground around them began to shake. A shadow passed overhead, then another. Eli looked up and froze. Descending from the clouds were sleek black ships, silent, their hulls glowing faint red beneath. They moved with precision, circling the valley like vultures. Saren's face went pale. Her voice cracked. No, not rescue, the hunters. Eli grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the trees. The first blast hit the ground behind them, exploding dirt and rock into the air. The shock wave threw him forward, pain shooting through his arm as he hit the ground. He turned, coughing, and saw the silver spire split open, revealing a ring of energy that pulsed like a heartbeat. From it stepped armored figures, tall, heavy, their armor black as the void. Each carried weapons that glowed with burning orange light. Saren's voice trembled. The retrievers, they came for me. Eli helped her up, his hands shaking. Then we run again. But before they could move, one of the soldiers saw them. A blinding beam of light cut through the trees, nearly hitting Eli's shoulder. He dragged Saren behind a fallen log, breathing fast. The cube in her hand pulsed violently, glowing brighter than ever. The alien soldiers began closing in, their steps silent but their presence heavy. Eli whispered, "They'll find us." Saren's eyes glowed faintly as she pressed the cube into his hands. "Hold it," she said, "and don't let go." The moment he touched it, warmth flooded through his palm. The cube vibrated, symbols running across its surface like liquid fire. Suddenly, the air around them rippled. When the soldiers stepped closer, their scanners flickered, and for a moment, they seemed blind. They walked right past the log, their eyes scanning the wrong direction. Eli stared at the glowing cube, amazed and terrified. "What is this thing?" he whispered. Saren's voice was faint. "A bondmaker, a key. It responds to the one who acts with heart." He looked at her, confused. "It listens to feelings?" She nodded slowly. "It chose you when you saved me." Eli's hands tightened around the cube, feeling its pulse match his heartbeat. The soldiers passed deeper into the woods, their lights fading into the distance. When silence returned, Saren slumped back against the ground, exhausted. Eli knelt beside her. "You need to rest." She shook her head, her voice barely above a whisper. "They will come again, stronger next time. You must be ready." Eli frowned. "Me? Why me?" Saren touched the cube in his hands. "Because it trusts you now, and so do I." Before he could reply, the cube flashed once, sending a small spark into his palm. He looked down and saw faint glowing lines spreading beneath his skin. The same patterns that once covered Saren's arms were now appearing on his. He gasped, but Saren only smiled weakly. "It begins." Then her body went limp, her energy spent. Eli shouted her name, shaking her shoulder, but she didn't respond. The cube dimmed slightly, as if mourning her. Outside, the humming of ships grew louder again. Eli looked up, jaw tight. He didn't know what was happening to him, but he knew one thing. He wouldn't let them take her. He grabbed the cube, stood up, and faced the rising sound of engines. For the first time in his life, he wasn't running. He was standing his ground. And somewhere far above, the Empire's ship shifted its path. A new signal flared in response to the cube's awakening, a message that would echo through the stars. The orphan of Earth had just been chosen, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The world around Eli felt heavy, like time itself had slowed down. Rain began to fall again, soft and cold, washing the blood and dust from his hands. Saren lay motionless against the roots of an old tree, her pale skin glowing faintly in the dark. The cube in Eli's hand pulsed slowly, like a living heart, each beat sending a warm wave through his veins. He could feel it connecting to him, listening, learning, remembering. He knelt beside Saren, his voice trembling. "Please, don't leave me now." The alien's eyes fluttered open, weak but calm. "Eli," she whispered. "The cube, it has chosen, it will protect you." Eli looked down at the strange light patterns crawling under his skin, moving like liquid fire. "What's happening to me?" he asked, panic and awe mixed in his tone. Saren reached up, her trembling hand touching his chest. "It is reading your heart, your memories, your courage." Then she smiled faintly. "It accepts you." A sudden thunder rolled through the sky, followed by the deep hum of engines. Eli turned and saw distant lights cutting through the clouds. The hunters were coming back, larger ships this time, their silhouettes like blackbirds of war. He clenched the cube, fear turning into something else, something sharper. The cube responded instantly, its glow turning from soft blue to fierce white. It began to float above his palm, spinning faster, energy crackling around it. Saren gasped. "It awakens fully now." The light grew so bright it burned through the mist, forming a small barrier dome around them. Eli could feel power in his blood, raw and alive. It wasn't like fire or pain. It was warmth, like the pulse of the planet itself. Through the barrier, he could see the soldiers arriving, black armor, glowing visors, weapons raised. They surrounded the clearing silently, confident, precise. Then one fired, a beam of orange light cutting through the air. But instead of striking Eli, the beam hit the barrier and shattered into 1,000 sparks. The soldiers stepped back, confused, whispering to each other in alien tongues. Saren smiled weakly, her voice faint. "Do you see now? It protects those who protect." Eli stared at his hands, glowing with the same energy as the cube. "I don't understand how," he said softly. Saren coughed. "You don't need to understand, you need to feel." He looked at her, this alien he barely knew, who had trusted him with something older than stars, and nodded. Outside, another blast hit the barrier, shaking it. The light flickered, dimmed, then grew brighter again, fueled by his heartbeat. Eli realized the truth. The cube's strength came from him. Then Saren's eyes widened in alarm. The cube, it is binding, it must stabilize. The air rippled around them as symbols appeared midair, ancient runes spinning in circles. Eli felt weightless, the world twisting and glowing in streaks of color. Memories flashed before his eyes, not his own, but someone else's. He saw a city of glass towers under 2 suns, aliens walking among humans, smiling. Then fire, war, silence. A voice echoed through his head, deep, calm, neither human nor alien. The heart of empathy chooses those who see life as sacred. When the vision ended, Eli was kneeling again beside Saren, gasping for air. The cube hovered silently before him, glowing steady now. He looked at it and whispered, "What are you?" Saren's voice was barely a breath. "The last relic of an ancient race, my people stole it, twisted it, but it was never meant for power." She looked at him with pride. It was meant for unity. Eli understood then that he wasn't holding a weapon. He was holding a choice, a tool that could destroy or protect, depending on the heart behind it. The forest around them lit up as the soldiers advanced again, their leader stepping forward. He was taller than the rest, his armor carved with golden lines, his voice metallic. "Return the relic. Human," he demanded. "It does not belong to you." Eli stood, the cube still floating before him. "Maybe not," he said, "but it trusts me." The leader raised his hand, dozens of weapons locked onto Eli. Saren whispered weakly, "Run." But Eli didn't move. He closed his eyes, focused on the warmth inside his chest, and whispered back, "No more running." The cube flashed bright white, expanding outward in a silent wave. Every weapon in the clearing powered down instantly, sparks shooting from their cores. The soldiers fell to their knees, clutching their helmets as the cube's energy spread like wine through the forest. The trees shimmered with light. Water rippled as if the earth itself was alive. Saren watched in awe, whispering, "You've done it. You've awakened its heart." But her voice broke again, and she fell back, weak and fading. Eli dropped beside her, his glowing hands shaking, Please, don't go. She smiled one last time, her eyes like stars dimming in peace. You saved me. Eli, now save yourself and your kind. Her body dissolved into soft blue light, merging with the energy around them. Eli stared in silence as the light flowed into the cube, which pulsed once and dimmed. Then everything went still. The rain stopped, the wind froze. Only Eli remained, kneeling under the faint light of dawn, the cube floating beside him. He felt empty yet powerful, lost yet awakened. He whispered, "You're gone, but I'm still here." And as he stood up, the markings on his arms glowed again. The cube drifted beside him like a companion. Eli looked toward the mountains in the east, the same place Saren had called the Mountain of Glass. He took a deep breath and started walking, each step echoing with new strength. The orphan who once had nothing was now carrying the light of an alien world. And somewhere in the heavens above, the Empire's ships watched in silence. For the first time, they hesitated. Because something far greater than fear had awakened, the courage of one human heart. The night sky above the valley was no longer dark. It burned with streaks of crimson light as alien ships moved like silent shadows through the clouds. Eli stood near the edge of the mountain forest, his clothes torn, his hands still glowing faintly from the cube's bond. Every muscle in his body ached, yet he felt more alive than ever. The cube floated beside him, spinning slowly, its soft hum echoing like a heartbeat that wasn't just his own. He whispered, "You're still with me, aren't you?" And the cube flickered gently in response. He turned his eyes toward the eastern peaks, the mountain of glass Saren had spoken of. It shimmered faintly under the twin moons, as if light were trapped inside the stone itself. He began his climb, the wind biting, cold and sharp. Each step reminded him of her words, "Protect life, no matter the cost." But before he reached halfway, a sound tore through the air, the shriek of engines descending fast. Eli ducked behind a boulder just as 3 ships cut through the mist, landing on the cliffs below. Their metallic hulls opened like jaws, and soldiers poured out. Black armor, red visors, silent and merciless. The Empire had found him. He could see their lights moving in formation, their scanners sweeping across the rocks. He held his breath, watching from above, his fingers wrapped tightly around the cube. It pulsed once, and a faint whisper entered his mind. Saren's voice, gentle, distant. "Do not fight their hate with hate. Eli, you are not them." He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the words calm his racing heart. Then he whispered back, "Then I'll fight for something better." The first drone spotted him. A red beam flashed through the fog, hitting the rocks inches away from his face. Eli rolled down the slope, dirt flying, and sprinted between stone pillars. The soldiers shouted commands in a language he didn't know, their steps pounding behind him. He reached a narrow path between cliffs, a dead end. The soldiers approached slowly, their weapons glowing. One of them spoke through a metallic voice filter. "Surrender the relic, human, and your death will be painless." Eli looked down at the cube, its light calm and steady. He whispered, "Guess that's a no." The cube floated from his palm, spinning faster. Energy gathered around it like a storm in silence. Then a pulse exploded outward, pure white light that rippled through the air. The soldiers' weapons jammed instantly, sparks bursting from their barrels. Eli didn't attack, he only raised his hand. The cube responded, creating a transparent wall of energy between him and the army. Blaster fire hit the barrier, but melted into harmless mist. The soldiers stepped back, shouting in panic. And then Eli spoke, his voice calm but strong. "I'm done running." The ground trembled beneath them. The mountain itself seemed to hum, resonating with the cube's energy. Blue symbols glowed across the rocks, ancient markings hidden beneath centuries of dust. Eli realized the mountain wasn't just a place. It was a relic, another piece of the same ancient technology Saren had guarded. The cube's light fused with the glowing veins of the stone. And suddenly, the sky changed. A beam of light shot upward from the mountain peak, piercing the clouds. The Empire's ships shuddered midair, their systems flickering. From the largest ship, a deep voice thundered through the speakers. "This world is under Imperial reclamation. Surrender the artifact or face destruction." Eli stared up at the massive silhouette, his jaw tight. He raised the cube high, the energy swirling around him like wind made of light. The markings on his arms flared bright blue, stretching across his chest and face. "I'm not surrendering anything," he said. The voice replied coldly. "Then die for your defiance, human." The ship's weapons charged, glowing like burning suns. Eli stood still, his eyes reflecting the light. The cube moved in front of him, spinning rapidly. He felt Saren's voice again, clearer now. "You carry my light, my promise. Now show them the strength of a heart that chooses mercy." The beams fired, crashing down from the sky in waves of orange fire. Eli raised both hands, and the cube responded. A massive dome of light erupted, covering the mountain and forest. The blasts hit it, but none broke through. The ground shook, the air split, yet the barrier held. Inside the glow, Eli stood unmoved, tears streaking through the dust on his face. The soldiers outside fell to their knees, their weapons useless. Even the great ship trembled, unable to penetrate the shield of a single human heart. Eli could feel his energy fading, but he didn't stop. The cube's hum grew louder, almost like a song, one of sorrow and hope. Then, as the last beam faded, silence filled the sky. The clouds broke apart, sunlight spilling through for the first time in days. The Imperial ship began to retreat, its engines flickering, its commander speechless. They had faced a force they could not comprehend. Not power, but compassion made real. Eli fell to his knees, exhausted. The cube floated gently beside him, its light dimming. He looked out over the valley, smoke rising from the retreating ships. He whispered, "We did it. Saren, we survived." The cube pulsed once, a soft heartbeat. But Eli knew it wasn't over. The Empire would return, stronger, angrier. And now they knew the relic was no longer theirs. He looked at the glowing veins across the mountain. They shimmered faintly, forming a pattern, a map. It led somewhere far beyond this world. Eli wiped the blood from his cheek, stood tall, and whispered, "Then I'll be ready." The cube floated beside him, its hum like a promise. The orphan who once had nothing had now become something more, a symbol of defiance. And far away among the stars, countless eyes turned toward Earth. Because one human boy had stood against an empire. And one. The sun rose slowly over the shattered mountains, painting the valley in shades of gold and fire. Smoke drifted from the burned forest below, curling upward like ghosts of the battle that had ended hours ago. Eli stood at the edge of the cliff, his clothes torn, his face marked with streaks of dirt and blood. The cube hovered quietly beside him, glowing faint blue, calm now, almost alive. The war machines were gone. The sky was silent, but inside him was a storm that refused to rest. He looked down at his hands, still traced with glowing lines beneath the skin. They pulsed gently with each heartbeat, a reminder of what Saren had left behind. He whispered softly, "You said I'd understand one day." The wind answered with silence, carrying only the scent of rain and metal. He knelt and pressed his palm against the cold stone, closing his eyes. Images flooded his mind. Saren's face, her voice, her laughter, and her final words, "Protect life, no matter the cost." For the first time, he understood what she meant. She hadn't given him a weapon, she had given him a responsibility. The cube was not a tool of war. It was a seed, something meant to heal what power had broken. As the thought formed, the cube drifted higher, spinning slowly, releasing faint ripples of light that spread through the air. Where the light touched the ground, grass began to grow, green and bright through the ash. The valley that had been torn apart by fire was slowly breathing again. Eli watched in awe, his lips parting as the ground shimmered with new life. He could hear Saren's voice faintly, like an echo from the stars. "Good, Eli. Now you see what strength truly is." He smiled weakly, whispering back, "You'd be proud, old friend." The cube pulsed brighter for a moment, as if answering him. Then it floated forward, casting a beam of light toward the mountain wall. The stone surface rippled like water, revealing an opening, a doorway of energy. Eli stepped closer, eyes wide, the markings on his arms glowing in response. He felt warmth radiate from the portal, not danger, but welcome. Inside, he saw shapes, faint outlines of figures made of light, tall and graceful. They looked like Saren, their eyes kind and ancient. One of them spoke in a soft voice that somehow reached straight into his heart. Child of Earth, the heart of empathy has found balance again. Eli took a step forward, unsure. Who are you? The light figure smiled. We are what remains of her kind, waiting for the one she chose. He felt a lump form in his throat. Saren saved me. She saved all of us. The figure nodded. And now you carry her light, as she carried ours. The cube floated into the portal, and for a moment Eli thought it would vanish forever. But then it stopped halfway, pulsing gently, as if asking him to follow. He hesitated, looking back at the valley. The forest below was alive again. Birds returning, the wind gentle, the sunlight clean. This was home, but he knew it would not stay safe forever. The Empire would come again, maybe not today, but one day. He clenched his fists, feeling the warmth of the markings beneath his skin. He had made a promise, not just to Saren, but to every life she had wanted to protect. Eli stepped through the light. For a moment, he felt weightless, floating between stars, memories, and dreams. He saw worlds, thousands of them, each glowing with different colors. He saw the faces of alien children laughing, human settlers building, creatures living in peace. It was beautiful and fragile. A voice echoed all around him, gentle and vast. Guard what connects, not what divides. He nodded, feeling tears in his eyes. I will. When the light faded, he found himself standing in a vast chamber beneath the mountain. Walls of crystal reflected his image 1,000 times over. At the center stood a small pedestal, and on it, the cube now resting in silence. He walked up to it slowly, placing his hands on the surface. The markings on his skin flared one last time, merging their glow with the cube. Then everything went still. The light faded from his arms, the cube dimmed. But in that silence, Eli felt peace, deep, complete peace. He looked up at the ceiling of the crystal chamber, where the sky could be seen through the glass-like rock. The stars were clear, brighter than ever. He smiled softly and whispered, Goodbye, Saren. Outside, the first dawn of a new day touched the mountains. And from the cracks of the earth, soft blue light rose, spreading across the valley, healing what had been broken. Eli walked out of the mountain alone, the wind brushing past him, carrying the scent of new life. He wasn't the same orphan anymore. He was something more, a bridge between worlds, a guardian born not of power but of compassion. As he disappeared into the forest trail, his shadow stretched long beneath the morning sun. Above him, far in orbit, Imperial ships watched in silence. But this time, none dared descend. Because across every sensor, one message echoed from the mountain's heart. The light of Raylon now belongs to humanity. And as the sky turned gold, the legend of the boy who saved an alien and awakened the cube began its journey among the stars.